Yeah, what are the basic skills every writer needs? What a good question. I know there's some default stuff that everybody writes. So I went and Googled online to have a quick look what other people had to say because I started building some of my own thoughts on this. If you've got ideas, let me know. Let me know what you think are the absolute essential skills. Um, Here's one that I thought was actually pretty good. Read and analyze the best stories. Force yourself to practice regularly. Mine ideas from your own life. Probably keep a journal, is what they're saying here. Keep a story swipe file. Yeah, learn the basic plot lines. I think that's pretty true. I think that is pretty true. Um, you can. I'm going to take all of the skills of writing, like the actual mechanics of learning how to write a novel. So we're talking what you do to get a word count, to translate an idea into text. Right. That's a pretty basic essential skill. That's like learning how to, when it comes to paint, do you know how to put color on the canvas? When it comes to writing with a pencil, do you know how to shape letters? Yeah. Do you know how to word good? Well, yeah. So that's a basic skill, and that means having a sense of how to structure sentences, how to do grammar. Okay, so that's certainly a basic skill. Let's put all of that together. How to put words on a page. Have you learned how to do that at all by reading books and by writing anything else? So that's a basic skill. You can't be a writer if you have no idea how to write. You can't paint. If you have never practiced or messed around with painting ever. So knowing how to get paint on a canvas is a skill, I think. I think another skill is definitely paying attention to ideas from your own life, learning to pay attention to yourself. As I get older, become wiser, I'm noticing that paying attention to how I process things a lot more, paying attention to how other people go about things and go, oh, that's interesting. That could be in a story. Now it was always a joke, right? Everybody's saying, don't do dumb stuff to me or I'll put you in my next novel and it may not end nice or you may not like it. I'm now at a point where I'm like, oh, I can see why people do that now because paying attention to each other, paying attention to how humans work, that's great skill, a great skill to learn how to do. So people watching is one thing people do. Watch movies, right? It's another way. Okay, I know a movie is like an orchestrated story, but it's also a really good example of compressing the complexity of a human into like a predictable kind of character that can solve a problem, which is what all of us do. When we come up against problems, we kind of collapse all the different things that we're thinking of into how do I handle this particular problem? What version of me is needed for this particular problem? And that's usually what stories are about. There's the version of you that you start with and then realize that version is not going to get to the end of the story. So that version has to change to become a new version. So if you can learn to pay attention to yourself, people watching, self awareness, I think that is a pretty essential skill. Um, I think that building habits, I think building habits is awesome, is pretty valuable because motivation is not going to do it. And I say this as someone who avoided writing a novel for 10 years. Motivation won't carry you through because you'll hit a Monday like everybody today, maybe, and you're not actually writing. Or you'll let months go by and you'll feel overwhelmed and stuff will be hitting you, coming at you, and life is busy and So then what do you do? Do you just not write? I'm always impressed at people like, what are those stories? Like, who's the guy who did Fahrenheit 451? Ray Bradbury. I think before and after work, he said he would stand in his basement with a typewriter and he would just type. I so admire that. In my case, I can't do that. I don't have a typewriter. That's my excuse. No, I also don't have a basement. Also my excuse. No. But in my case, my days, maybe this is like you, maybe. My day is very carefully scheduled out the whole way through, don't have a lot of free time. I do have some free time. And then where that happens is kind of where my brain goes, I just want to relax. I want a cheat day. I want to crash because everything is. So what I have not done is exactly what I'm recommending. And what I'm realizing and now learning is I cannot sit around and wait for motivation to write because that will show up like a drip hits the gas tank. Boom, I want to write and I want to do something. And then that doesn't come back the next day, which is exactly what happened last week. As opposed to building habits and then stacking them. How do you get to work? How do you get anything done in your life? How do you get a meal put together? How do you go out and hang out with friends? You have habits. You're going to be this kind of a person. You're going to do this kind of thing. You are definitely not going to do whatever these things are because that's not appropriate. It doesn't work in these environments. You're going to go to these places, maybe say these things to get access to something, like if it's a speakeasy or if it's a bookstore, you're going to act a particular way in a bookstore to get the outcome that you want. So those are all habits. You're going to get in a car. You don't ever think about exactly everything you need to do to drive, to get onto the highway and to navigate town. Those are all habits. Those are all habits that you practiced and drilled into yourself until you didn't have to think about them anymore. Well, what if we did the same thing with writing? So that means having an environment that you like sitting down in, surrounding yourself with a set of rituals, set of things of like something to listen to, something to maybe snack on, or something to smell, something to eat, right? All of these are things that you do when it is time to write and you're telegraphing to yourself um, that you are writing. Man, I'm suddenly thinking, is there a Schrodinger's cat uh, reference that can be made here? Like, you are ready and not ready to write till you open the box. And that just kind of feels accurate. Maybe some of the habits are simple, like closing everything on your computer and opening your Word document or your project file or your Pinterest board. Although anything with social media is probably going to be a question or a problem. Um, you know what? Time management is probably another one. Let's do that next. Excuse me. Um, so that way, as soon as a particular time comes and you think about this and you sort of think it through and prep it through the day before, when the time comes, you come and sit down, and maybe as you're just beginning the habit, you go 5-10 minutes. We're just going to sit here, do 5-10 minutes. And I'm going to write out 3 words. I am here, or I am a writer. Yeah, that's still 3 words if you contract it. And maybe that's all you have to do for the first couple of days, right? Or maybe you just read through your notes again. You're associating doing creative stuff with you sitting down or you being in that place. It could be, some people are great in cafes or libraries, whatever it is. Can you count on it? It's probably a good thing to be able to do. It's like being able to go to sleep. It's like when, what is that thing? Like when you're in Minecraft, right? And it's like you can't sleep because there's mobs nearby, right? I think a lot of us are like that too. When it's time to go to bed and you're lying there and you're sleeping, well, it's because there's mobs nearby and you just lay there for hours. Well, the mobs might be inside you and they might be in your mind and you're stressed about the day and things aren't finished and you're worried about tomorrow. And so, yeah, you can't rest because your body doesn't feel safe to rest. And that's probably another skill. You know what? I'm a genius. I should probably write stuff down. So there's writing good. What did I just say here? There's writing good. There's habits. There's time. There's self-awareness. Darn, I had another one. I forgot it. No, probably sleep. I think those are probably the top 5. Let's keep going. So building a habit is not about forcing, can't be about forcing, because I think you probably know as well as I do. When have you ever led a horse to water? When have you ever forced a dog to do something it didn't want to do? Or your cat, or your neighbor, or your friend or family member or something? You might have sort of won a battle in the short term, but if they resented it, what is that line? Person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still. And it's going to be exactly the same thing with you and me. If you're forcing yourself to do something that you don't want to do, or it's being done in the wrong way, the point will come where you will either burn out or you just won't come back and do it. This is one reason why I don't think it's helpful to try to tell yourself to act like a bunch of other authors that you want to be like. It's important that you figure out how to be the author you are. Um, and so when you flip it, when you absolutely love something or when you enjoy it and when it's fun, you're going to learn how to do it so much faster. You're going to want to come back to it. Uh, all of you is like aligned and like, yeah, we want to do this thing. This is a really good idea. We should do this. So how do you do that for writing? And that might come down to you. And maybe it's something you can only do at 1 a.m. in the morning because finally everybody's left you alone. But again, going back to the sense of like, being asleep and all that, you know, you can finally sleep when you can finally relax and let stuff go for a minute. And it might have not actually totally gone away, but could have, you found a space in between your thoughts that did allow you to rest. I think that that can be the same thing we need to do with our writing. Again, for me, I'm throwing myself up here. I'm trying to solve my own problem here. Trying to build a habit of writing. What are the things I need to do? Well, some of them are actually everything around the actual process of writing, because that's what's stopping it. I don't have a good system for my day. So I need to tackle that. I need to build up a systematic day that I can count on, kind of like going to sleep at the same time so that your body can count on the fact that there's a cycle and you can go to sleep and your body can count on it. So I need to be able to count on my days. Is that even possible for you? If it's not possible for you, it might be really hard to get into doing something creative. And actually, that makes life really tough for us creative type people. If you're working in with an agency or if you're having to do creative stuff all the time, You're having to learn specific skills and then spam those skills no matter how you feel. At that point, you're not actually maybe being creative. You're doing a lot of recombining. So make sure you got a cheat day in there somewhere. Make sure there's some self care. And that's probably kind of where I'm getting at is the sense of self care. Same way that you're supposed to go to sleep on purpose because sleep is not just an important part of your day. It's an intentional part of your day. We sleep not just to wrap up one day and to begin the next, but to actually go to learn stuff, to actually sit with ourselves and be quiet. Kind of let the body sleep and then let your consciousness marinate in itself away from your daylight consciousness, right? Your daylight laser attention. Sort of get out of that for a minute. Be in conversation with yourself and see what you can learn. And not just with yourself, but with everything that can also communicate with you. Returning to the sea of consciousness, right? The drop in the water stuff without losing your sense of self. Drop in the ocean. Um, that's what sleep is. It's an important thing. Creativity comes from that place, from that space where you go when you dream. That's where creativity comes from. So if you're never nurturing that, well, it's probably a good idea too. I think creativity can come from a place of urgency, but I think it needs a context of rest. You need like a regular baseline because that's how your body operates. Because if you don't have that, then your body's stressed out. And if it's stressed out, that's going to bleed into the kind of creativity you create. So building good habits, something that your body can count on so it knows when I get into this environment, when this trigger, this time thing, you know, time of the day comes up, I know that I can sit down or I'm going to go to this place. And when I go to this place, I am safe to be here and I'm going to write and I'm going to be able to create and I'm going to be able to show up for this. And I don't have to do this for all the rest of the day, but just for this time. And then when you do that, you will build confidence and the resilience. I know because it's exactly what happened to me. And I wrote a novel it was about 2.5 to 3 months before I had a job change. And then that just changed my whole, day sense of my day. And I got like, I don't know, 80,000 words, 90,000 words done. No, 120,000 words done. And then I finally came back a year later and wrote the last 2, 3 chapters. You can absolutely do it. And then I lost my habits because I was trusting in motivation. What fascinates me so much is this that NASA, for example, when they go to train their astronauts, do not trust in motivation because you're going to be up there for like hundreds of hours, maybe even hundreds of days, right? They cannot wait for you to be motivated to get stuff done. You do things. You are trained in what to do. When this stimulus happens, you respond instantly. You're stacking habits. Here's a baseline of good habits. When this is going on, when I am dead bored, here's what I do. Here's how I handle it. So if you've never thought about those, it's probably a good idea to mess around with that because they've got to come from you. I'm so annoyed by so much advice that's out there where one person gets up and you can totally look at me and say exactly the same thing, but one person will get up and go, well, here's the right way to do stuff. And this is what worked for me. And if you do this, you're going to like, I don't know, make 100,000 in a year or you're going to write 50 books and stuff. And I look at that and I go, I'm not that person. I'm not like you. I don't want what you want out of life. I don't want to go about doing it the way that you're doing it. So I need to go find someone who's like me. It's sometimes very hard to find. So writing habits, figure them out. Figure out writing habits that work for you, that come from you, that work with your energy, that work with your attention. I'm not always sure that forcing it is always a good idea. But hey, some people need it. Some people are absolutely so lazy, they need to totally change their lives. Some people have way too much going on that they actually need to calm down and de-stress and stop saying yes and to everything maybe, and they think about, what do you actually want to do? I think something that changed for me this past year was I had a dream, and I remember in the dream I died. And I remember feeling the second thought was, oh no, I'm never going to be able to write all the things that I wanted to write. And sometimes when people have those, those recommendations, like imagine yourself in your last day, what's your biggest regret? If everything continued as it was now. And I remember always thinking, wow, my biggest regret would be that I never wrote the things I wanted to write because I kept putting it off. Because I didn't allow myself time to be bored enough to be able to show up for myself and write. And I think that's a major problem with our modern world, isn't it? We're always on. The news cycle is always on. Everybody else seems to be always on. Instagram celebrities are always on. Everybody's live streaming. Well, you're creating content. Netflix is always running. It's like everything is constantly humming. I've got this metaphor that seems funny these days for me, in that we're like born to be hobbits and we're dropped in a Warhammer 40K Everwar. And we didn't evolve to function that way. There's a show I like watching, All Creatures Great and Small, and it's like watching hobbits, putz around with each other and try to figure out how to navigate human relationships and care for animals and care for each other and introducing new things that destabilize how to go about trying to create a home. And it's all about friendships and marriage and family building and trying to build a good world. And honestly, I look at that and I go, that just looks like the human ideal. We're able to do stuff like, what is that series? Suits, right? We're able to do stuff like Terminal List, high powered, super intense stuff, but that is not the human baseline. To have an always on news cycle, feeding you news and then reactions to news from all over the world, it's pretty awful, especially when a lot of it you can't do anything about, which is why we elect people to make decisions for us, or why there are bigger organizations that pay attention to this stuff. But if you're stressed out, and if you're not centered, and if you're not here because you're everywhere else, what good are you for yourself or for anybody else? It's funny, I think I've been reading spirits into the topic of spiritism lately, and somebody asked a spirit at one point, what do you think about, what are they called? Um, People who go live far away from everybody else, like in a, like a monk, right? Um, Not eremitic. There's another word, not hermetic. Forgetting the word, but they go and they live super far away from everybody for a super long time, and they says, "Is this a good idea?" And then the question or the response from the spirit came back was like, "Well, what good are you to anybody? Like, if you genuinely have good gifts and charisms, um, you have them for you in the service of the ultimate truth of what life is, and you're supposed to put it at the service of helping everybody else. So if you've completely cut yourself off and you're far away from everybody, what good are you to anyone? Okay, maybe you need to do that for a while to figure yourself out, but then you come back. I don't know. I thought it was such a great thought and great response. Now, I mean, if you end up creating a whole new city or a whole new village kind of grows up around you because you find a good place where you need to go, if you're doing it to get away from other people, I'm not sure that you've actually solved any problem. You basically ran away, bricked yourself up into a cell, and now you're locked in with yourself. Plus, the rest of the entire spirit world that you've bricked yourself in with. They don't care about doors. Um, but if you're doing it because, for example, you genuinely need to detach from everybody else to kind of rediscover yourself. Hey, we're kind of talking about authors here too, right? Rediscover your sense of self. And then maybe also there are some people who do recognize that they may not be called to be in conversation with other people, but they may be called to be, excuse me, in conversation with or helping or healing a place, the land, the animals of that land. So my takeaway is, and I think this is the same for authors, like we think a lot like, oh, if I could just get into a studio apartment, if I could get away from everything, man, it'd be great. And the question then is, um, what kind of an interesting person, what kind of a helpful human being are you going to be if you're like running away from dealing with every other human being ever? What good are you, right? I think as storytellers, we're called to be in dialogue with other people, conversation with other people, and we do it through books. Other people get on stage, other people do it on YouTube, right? Authors do it through books. We sit down and we think for 10,000 words, 100,000 words. This is a really fun experience. Even stories that are really fun and mindless, they still are saying something about the world. This is the way the world is. For example, murder procedurals, right? They keep being recommended to me because I'll keep dipping into like gritty noir stuff and then I'll come back and they keep showing up, these murder procedurals and whatever. And then I'll just realize I don't actually want to watch all of these for a couple of different reasons, but I actually kind of like the, Maigret, Miss Marple sort of thing. The worldview that these things are sharing over and over and over is that when something bad happens, good people or people who want to be good are going to do something about it. And that's a world worth living in. They're going to try to do the best they can to create a safer world. I don't think you had murder mysteries in ancient Assyria or, or any other, kind of culture. We're fascinated now in that it's like murder mysteries, like all of these are a taking seriously that line, from Genesis where Cain goes, "Am I my brother's keeper?" And every murder mystery goes, "I am my brother's keeper." I just watched what did I watch over the weekends? Probably why this is coming up a lot. His and Hers, um, with John Bernthal, and I forget the name of the girl. And that was so fun. My goodness, 6 episodes. It did not let up. I did not expect to be so pulled in. They said to everybody who watched it get pulled in. And I thought, yeah, right, let me go give it a try because whatever, I'm a tough nut to crack. And then after the first episode, first and half into the second, I'm like, okay, this is there's something here. This is great. And it ended up being such a fun, so fast paced, so fun, gripping, and then with a twist you would not believe all the way at the end. Um, I was getting to the end going, there's still a half hour left on this thing. How is there still a half hour? It was great. Um, but what's the point of that? It's like no matter how bad we are, there's a way that we can work out or seek, redemption or trying to become a better human being, better person when we go about trying to solve everybody else. The difficulties that they're going through. How do we lift up or how do we help heal or how do we bring about justice to help others? I think that's a pretty good message. I'm a little bit derailed from the question I was trying to answer. Okay, so we talked about there's the basic writing skills, there's stacking your habits, and then there's self awareness. And the last two skills that I do think are essential is time and sleep. And these are probably shorter, but I think time is can you manage your time? Are you able to control your time at all in any way? If you have people like your boss calls you whenever they want or can, or families call, members call you whenever they want or can, or friends can drop in completely unannounced and all of this, and you have absolutely no ability to control your time, it's going to be really hard to find that place of stillness and rest inside you so that creative stuff can start to happen, right? So what do you do about that? Friend, I don't know. I can't answer for you. It's something you will have to figure out for yourself. But there are some pretty basic things that do seem like a good thing. One is, do you have a system for how your day works? Or is your day crazy and unpredictable every single time? It is possible that you have a personality type that needs a crazy, unpredictable day. If you can figure that out and how to make writing work, that is fantastic. And you need to let me know what your secret is because I don't know how that. I don't think most people are like that. I think that a human body, no matter your personality type, needs routine, regular days or events. I mean, you need water every day. You need 2 to 3 meals, right, every day. You need sleep every day. So there's certain basics. You need a baseline of safety and calm, a roof over your head, people not actively out to try to harm you, right? There's a baseline of predictable rest that a human body is supposed to exist in. So if you can find a way to create that. Now, if I don't know, if you're like a teen or not a teen, if you're a college student and everybody's coming in and out of your college room, maybe that's not a good place to try to write in. Maybe you need to go to the library, find one of those little rooms or one of those alcoves or some place where you can control, okay, where you can control who is able to interrupt your time. Because what are you doing when you sit down to write? It's kind of cool. It's the same way that when somebody sits down to read, you're hallucinating vividly while you're turning, um, slices of a tree, right? Or you're sliding through light and you're hallucinating vividly. Well, you're doing the same thing when it comes to writing. You're sitting down and you're starting a session of active contemplation. I'm going to actively kind of disassociate from being me and maybe kind of disembody into this induced kind of dream state. And I'm going to channel that and I'm going to try to write that down. When you're, the research into how astral traveling works and stuff like that, you need to like block out light. You need a quiet room, sensory deprivation tank. Your body needs to know, like, we are totally safe right now to be able to do this thing. Well, authors need that too. Fiction authors, you need that exact same sort of thing. It's not a sensory deprivation tank, but do you have some kind of sensory sort of control situation? Because if people can come in and interrupt and shift your focus and split your attention and, derail or detract you, that's going to be so hard to be able to keep up any sort of writing habit. So it's a massive favor to yourself. And it's a way that you telegraph to yourself, I'm here, I'm taking care of us, this is important. Therefore, we're going to do the things that are going to help make it happen. Um, Gosh, could be the basement, could be the attic, could be a friend's house. You could, I don't know, schedule something. There are offices you can like rent or something. I don't know, it's probably expensive to do that. So, can you control the time that you spend when you write? Can you make it predictable? Um, and then to be able to do that, that also means this is why it's a skill, one of the basic skills every writer needs. It's a skill that you'll need to apply to the rest of your day. How do you manage your time? Because if you have no boundaries, and I say this as an ENF, but I just redid it over the weekend, the Myers Briggs thing, ENFJ. Yeah. We're very bad with boundaries. We do not know how to say no. We like to save everybody. We like to pay attention to everything. Sometimes we have really nice things to say, and if you think so, say hi in the comments. But we sometimes have helpful things to say. But we're very bad at boundaries, so we have to actively pay attention and work at boundaries because they feel very uncomfortable. The moment you have to create a boundary, it's because somebody has broken it. They didn't know that you had one. You did, and you're not happy about that. Otherwise, you're not enforcing it. So it might be no, this person can't do this at this time. No, they can't call you or demand whatever they want. No, they can't. Whatever. Learning to say no. Tell you what's been a personal inspiration for me. I took one look at it and thought, "Oh, I wanna be that kind of person." I was watching Reacher from Prime, and there's these moments where somebody wants him to do something he does not wanna do, and I just love how he just stares that person straight in the eye and goes, "No." No explanation, nothing. I look at that and I go, "Man, I need to be more like him," because everybody just think I mean, not they do it because I let them, right? They Slack me, they email me, "Hey, can you do this?" They text me, "Hey, I need help on this," and because I'm a, you know, I don't know, bleeding heart caretaker. I like to take care of people. Don't like confrontation, stuff like that. In general, there are some people who thrive on it. Dwight Schrute. I am not Dwight Schrute. Um, I have to learn to say no, and things get better when I do. Like almost every time, they get better when I do, because then they understand no, and then you got to curate that and cultivate that boundary, right? If you got any questions about this stuff, say hi. If you have a hard time, or type the number one if you got a hard time with maintaining boundaries. Because then here's the other thing. As soon as you create a boundary, the narcissist is the one who goes, it's like, why did the narcissist cross the road, right? It's because it was a boundary. Sometimes you may not need to be home. If everybody knows that's where you are, if you're trying to write and you want to feel safe doing it, you may need to go somewhere else. Totally get away. So, can you control your time throughout the day? You're already kind of doing that when you punch in and out of work, your drive home, maybe, or your commute, or maybe you're remote. If you're working remote, kind of like me, I work remotely. Okay, 24/7. I'm always, for the last 10 years or so, been working. Well, maybe 10 years. Been working remote. And when you're home, man, you can get so lazy and you can get so comfortable. Having a rigorous system actually is the only thing that has saved me. Um, I'm curious if you have found ways that make it work for you. You've got relaxing times, obviously, then you got really structured for most of your day. You want to get stuff done. It's also something that creates predictability. And the human body, right? Well, it loves and thrives in predictability as a calm baseline so that your mind can go off and do whatever it needs to do, whether it's things like engaging with things that are slightly scarier or riskier, like job hunting or interviews or trying to live stream on a Monday during a snowstorm, right? To want to hang out with people. All of those riskier kind of things, they feel impossibly more risky when your body's in a state of stress because you don't know when your next meal is and you haven't created a regular day that your body can count on, you can count on. But if that's going good, stress is lowered, more freedom to be creative, well, you've got more energy to tackle risk. Stuff doesn't feel as risky because you feel braver, because you're calmer. And creativity and writing is probably more accessible. And then the last thing is going to be sleep. We sort of touched on that a bit back. Um, Gosh, what to say with sleep? You absolutely need it. And I totally understand revenge, bedtime procrastination. It's also fully possible that you're not supposed to go to sleep at that time. So knowing your chronotype, I think, has become increasingly valuable and important. And it does change over time. So what's a chronotype? If you've never heard of it, it is according to who you are, kind of the type of body that you have, you're supposed to be asleep at a particular time. Some of us rise with the sun. Some of us rise way later in mid morning. Some are way after midday, and some rise whenever we want, and it's kind of crazy. Um, what does that mean, though? It means that your peak energy hours, maybe when it's easier to get into flow state, happens at different times of the day. So if you're like a bear, which is kind of what I am, although that's kind of changing. I might just be because I'm really tired, though. If you're like a bear and you wake up really early, peak energy time, I think, is mid to late morning. If you're like the lion and you awaken, mid morning, I think what is it, midday to early afternoon is your peak energy. Um, and then the wolf is like you might stay up really late, and then your peak energy hours are like late afternoon, maybe early evening. And then the dolphin, because the dolphin has a bicameral brain, it can like switch off one side of the brain to sleep, and then it switches off the other side of the brain to sleep because it's constantly swimming or something. They're just weird and amazing. And so there are some people who just can do whatever they want, sleep whenever they want, and they're perfectly fine. How long they can keep that up for, I literally have a serious question, but apparently they can, and they just sleep when they need to. Um, so It just seems like accepting all of that and then building that into your daily habit means knowing when your peak energy is. I hope that you're able to like control that time when you have your peak energy. Maybe that's what you can put towards the most important things in your life. And if it's writing, I hope that it's something you can put towards that. So if you're a early riser, early to mid morning, then or something like that, Google it, Chronotypes. Find out your peak energy time. Can you schedule your writing session around that time? I'm literally at a point where I'm just turned 38 last week, and all of a sudden I'm sleeping in a ton. I can't seem to get up in early in the morning. Now I did I had a tooth come out. I had some surgery, so I may just be more generally tired. But I need to now rebuild my habit of getting up early, feeling like I can get up again. It's also possible winter can change things. It used to be I'd get up, really quite early in spring and summer, falls, and take an early morning walk. So I probably want to rebuild that, that habit. But there you go. If you know when you are best able to sleep, and you might be, if you're like in college, somebody who sleeps or doesn't need to sleep until like 2 in the morning, and so your best energy time is when you guaranteed everybody will leave you alone. So you sleep later, you sleep then. So those are the five things that stand out or come to mind for me. The five essential skills, and they seem kind of rote and funny, but it seems to me I mean, obviously there's loads of other things you can stack in here, and if there's other ones that you think I've missed, please let me know. Maybe we'll come back and do a part two. Five more essential skills, right? But I think that yes, there's learning the basics of writing, but also sleep can be something just as hard to figure out and then maintain and adapt to. If you can learn the skill of what are the things that you do to tee up a good sleep, like um, you know, reducing blue light in the evening, darkening your room, not drinking stimulating stuff like 8 hours before bed, right? Caffeine and whatever. Um, Doing calming activities at nighttime, having a predictable time when you do it. Like if you can do all of those things, you're going to have a much easier night. So now you got to learn to navigate your day and build habits and systems around that too. So that's why I say it's a skill, because it's something that will then continue to change when you least expect it, and your day is going to be really awful. And then some days it's not going to work at all. And then you give yourself grace and go, I am not sleeping right now. And so this is just the way it is. And I'm going to do my best. Uh, on the morrow. So the five skills, again, writing, good habits, which is intentional habit, stacking and trying to create systems so that you're not relying on motivation to write, because motivation never shows up when you need it to. Time, can you control and manage your time? And that means maybe being able to set boundaries. Um, Self awareness, paying attention to yourself, paying attention to other people. How do they think? How do you think? And more often than not, we get into a story and we absolutely love a story, unless you're the kind of author like Dean Koontz, right? Or Agatha Christie, where you're just able to pump out stories all the time because they've figured out something predictable about their main character, and they can just stress test them in a ton of different ways. For most of us who are trying to figure out why we're writing it all and we're figuring it out for the first time, you're in love with that story because it's revealing something about you to yourself. And sometimes you have to write a whole 100,000 word, all the way through it before you can finally go, oh, this is why this story matters to me. And if you're like me, you've got like 50 stories rattling around and you're like, I don't even know why I love this one until I spend time messing around with it and writing it. So self awareness, practicing knowing yourself. What you think, what kind of person are you? What kind of personality type are you? There are so many cool personality tests. All of them can give you little edges on here's how you are in your good state. Those are always fun to read. And here's how you are in a compulsive or an addictive or negative state. Like, okay, those are the areas to work on. I don't like to look at those, talk about those, but I mean, what else are you here for if not to figure out how to, strengthen all of your weak areas so that you can be a solid, rounded, awesome human being? That's exactly what stories are about, isn't that it? The stories like, I think I'm this kind of person and I am awesome, and then life smacks you in the face and like, okay, I need to adapt so that that doesn't happen again and solve that problem. It's exactly what our characters go through. Well, you're the character in your own story. It's exactly what we need to do. So learning about yourself. Um, and then lastly, like I said, can you figure out a skill or how to navigate sleep? So there's a big long question or a big long answer to that question, and I hope it was helpful. And if you're catching the replay, friends, let me know what you think I should have covered.